Just be true to yourself. You've got nothing to hide.
Good afternoon. I'm back. I missed you this morning, so thanks, Doug, for filling in for me. We're going to start a little early, and I'm just going to tell you up front that this session is going to require your help. I will explain what that means in about a minute. So if I could ask my esteemed panel to join me on the stage. Have you guys been mic'd up? I need a handheld, please. Oh, sorry, I didn't realize I was on. I need a handheld, please. Take the sign, please. Okay.
Okay. There?
Yes.
Okay. Sign for you. There.
Oh, we can't see how empty this
Okay. I'm assuming most everybody has seen the agenda and knows what the title of this session is. We're going to try to have some fun. So, as I mentioned, audience participation is required. And how this is going to work is the first part of this is going to be I'm going to read statements, and then I'm going to ask everyone in the audience, as well as my panel, to say whether or not they agree or they think it's bullshit. And then we're going to jump into a session. The second part of this will be, and the larger part will be questions I will ask of my panel. I will pick two people to answer, depending on how they answer with their cards. I'm going to ask them to give a reason for the card they chose, which side they chose. And then the audience is going to say whether or not they agree or they think it's bullshit. So I hope you enjoy.
Hot mic, Chris.
Everybody ready? Okay.
Let's jam.
So the very first question, this is a softball, so no thinking required. The digital divide can be solved. Agree or bullshit? Audience? Audience?
Come on, people.
All right, and we need better participation. All at once, please. The digital divide is the ISP's responsibility to solve. Agree or bullshit? Bullshit. Oh, look, that's better. Okay. Gig, multi-gig. Oh, I hate this question. Should be a requirement for all. Agree or bullshit? Bullshit. Wow, there's some violence there.
It's a good one, Dean Parvar.
Okay. Now, this is mainly for the ISPs, because I know how you probably answer this one, but passings are more important than drops. Oh, I thought we'd have agrees on that one. All right, and the last statement is we should be focused on immediate versus long-term results. Okay, so now we're going to go into the second half, and this is where, once again, I'm going to ask a question, and I'm going to pick two panelists to give their reason behind their own answer. And please, while they're giving their answer, please do not yell bullshit. You wait till they're done, and then you can yell bullshit all you want, okay? Okay, so what is the most dangerous lie we're telling as it relates to the digital divide, excuse me?
I think, for me to answer that, Jeff, is, when everybody voted about the digital divide cannot be closed, we cannot close that gap, I call bullshit on that. And between fiber, fixed wireless access, and LEO, we are the people that have to envision that happening and actually make that happen and execute. And when you talk about truly bridging the digital divide, how do we define that? Is that providing a connection where someone can access GED courseware for free and get a high school education that may not have gotten a high school education? Not making it time-bound, I believe in humanity, I believe in the people in this room that we can actually bridge that digital divide and connect them all.
But I think the question is, what is the definition of the digital divide? So for NDIA, the National Digital Inclusion Alliance, we think of it as being able to fully participate in our digital society. So if that connection exists, but you can't afford it or you don't know how to use it, have we actually bridged the digital divide?
So let me just explain the rules again. I ask the question, you guys hold up your signs, and then I pick the two people. Does everybody agree with that? Say yes.
That's bullshit.
David's the nice one.
Touche. Okay.
Why did I sign up for this, man?
It's great to be in charge. Okay, are we ready?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Yes, Jeff.
Does the executive branch have the authority to cancel congressionally appropriated digital equity funds? Agree or bullshit?
Do you want us to answer the question, or do you want us to
Yeah.
flip our card around?
I want you to flip your card up and then
Okay.
I'll pick.
Cards.
All right. Okay, so I'm gonna pick two, and one of them's clearly an obvious choice. But David, you go first since you were waffling there.
I was waffling because we had this conversation, in fact, earlier. If we're going to legislative intent, going back to the IIJA, that's one thing. If we're arguing about the way BEAD was implementing digital inclusion and equity, that's a different matter. So it is a constitutional question and a fair one to ask if the executive branch can do something that Congress has already settled. I don't think that's an issue. I think that, in fact, the executive branch needs to follow what's happened in the Congress. So hopefully I've got some agreement out there. But I also believe that you've got to go back to the true congressional intent of the IIJA to understand what it was saying and not try to apply just what BEAD said in version 1.0.
Audience, agree or bullshit? Audience, louder. Thank you. Angela?
It's obvious, I think, that I learned in 6th grade that it's not the executive branch that makes the laws or cancels the laws, that's our congressional representatives, and then sometimes our courts step in. And it's nowhere in there does it say the executive branch can do that.
Excellent. Audience? You wouldn't want to make her mad anyways.
The ayes have it.
So the question is, are we funding infrastructure or just inflated expectations? So I would like the vote on the latter part of that question. So are we funding infrastructure, or are we inflating expectations? And remember, you guys wrote these questions.
Okay, who wrote that question?
Who did write that question?
I think Jeff wrote that question.
It's not a bullshit or agree question, sir.
All right, well then,
Our answers are the bullshit or agree. So
all right, so go ahead.
I'll take a stab.
You take a stab at it.
I think the way that we have now changed the requirements of the BEAD program, we are just inflating expectations, right? And I think this goes back to the question of whether the digital divide is actually solvable, which, we have to understand that these questions are also connected to things like racism and poverty and discrimination and societal inequality. And so the digital divide is so much bigger than just infrastructure. Even it's so much bigger than digital, than just the digital. It's not. It's affordability. It is software. It is support. It is device access. It is training. It's also a cradle to a grave issue. I mean, right now there's an AI divide, but There, 5 years from now, there's going to be another divide. And so the idea that folks can say, hey, you know what, we're going to connect everybody with quote unquote infrastructure, and then we're all going to be said and done. That is inflating expectations. The digital divide will not end when everybody gets connected. Look at that.
I think they agree.
So maybe a better way of asking this is, are we building infrastructure that's actually solving real problems? And I don't know that we are, but
I think we're running the risk of it causing a lot more problems.
David?
I would just say that I think everything starts with a connection. So before anything else can be solved, you have to have a connection. The faster we can get the connection meeting the 100/20 and low latency standard, the better, because everything else can be solved on the back of that. So building infrastructure to connect everyone, that's job one.
I think you also look at certain service providers. You've got VistaBeam out of YO Brascarado, and tip of the cap to Matt Larson and Drew Wicker, who are probably out in the audience. But not only are they bringing connectivity, but they're also offering learning centers where people can learn Excel spreadsheet skills, how to write a resume, how to have proper internet browsing skills that aren't junk.
Safe browsing skills.
Safe browsing skills. Thank you.
So it's not the ISP's challenge that all of it should be on the ISP, but as an ISP, you want your users to become more valuable customers, utilize the service more. So everyone still has obviously a role in it, right? I mean, you want to train someone how to use your product, and if your product's delivering the internet, well, you are a part of it, but it doesn't obviously rest solely on your shoulders. It's on all of ours.
Okay, so the next one is, everyone needs a gigabit connection.
Bullshit.
Like today or tomorrow, or I think that's part of the question. Today.
Well, listen, I'll give you some context behind that, a little bit of context, at least from my perspective. We've been talking about this for 7 years, gigabit communities, and I think, quite frankly, we've oversold. It was marketing hype that is not in line with reality, and reality means that most consumers don't understand there are two networks serving their experience. There's one to the outside of the premise, and there's one on the inside. The one on the inside has always lagged the one on the outside, and it's only until recently with Wi-Fi 7 that you can actually distribute wirelessly an equitable connection throughout a home. But prior to that, and most consumers are using wireless technologies to connect their devices, that network, you could not use what you're paying for. So there's some context behind that.
Thank you, Jeff.
Jump in on for a little devil's advocate here, because should not our policies and our programs plan for, not for the connectivity for today, but the connectivity we're going to need in 10 and 20 years from now? Otherwise, we're going to have the exact same problem that we've had over the past failures of these programs, right? With the entire history of funding broadband has been about connecting people with the technologies of yesterday, right? Let's look at the technologies. Let's make sure that we are equipped to handle the digital and ecological problems of tomorrow. That's how we should be spending $42.5 billion. Agreed.
Okay, so two things. What you're talking about, there's nuance there. So the nuance is you're talking about infrastructure, not the connection inside the home. Yes, we should be building the infrastructure to support scalability of a network, but it doesn't mean that consumers need a gigabit inside their home.
Today it doesn't mean they don't.
Yeah, but if you have the infrastructure in place, that solves its own problem going forward. So the other thing I was going to say is, Brian, you have to get involved here. So, but I'm going to let you answer the rebuttal.
Brian, you get involved, but David, you answer.
So get your bullshits ready.
Hold on for you. So for those who don't know me, I've deployed fiber. I'm friendly to fiber. I happen to run primarily a wireless industry association. And what I look for are real facts in the way that broadband is being used. And you can see reports, for example, from Prasim that look at both fiber utilization and also look at wireless utilization. And we're still on average seeing something like 25 megabits per second of average usage at the residential level in a download. It's going to take a long time to consume a gigabit of service in what's actually being consumed at the residential level. There are great uses for gigabit connectivity, but forcing $42.5 billion down a pipe to say that we have to do this to be ready for the future when the growth trends are not showing that actual utilization emerging deprives us of the ability to get connectivity to people now. And for folks who may believe that wireless is somehow inferior, there's a lot of evidence to the contrary, including the equipment that's out today. The FCC has determined, for example, that in terms of resiliency, while underground fiber is the gold standard, number 2 in resiliency is fixed wireless. And it's only tied with aerial fiber that's on composite poles. If you're on wooden poles, it's an inferior solution to fiber. Now, you don't hear that talked about in our industry very much, but I think that it's a more complex picture. If we're going to go sell a gigabit to every single home, we need to be able to demonstrate that there is a use case that is actually out there and it's not being proven by fact. You want to?
Yeah. Brian, you want to go?
Well, I think the only thing I would add is I totally agree with this. I mean, I think at the end of the day, the average consumer doesn't know wireless, fiber, or any of it. They just want it to work. They want it to be like their Apple phone, and it just comes on, and it's simple and easy, and it's reliable, and it works, right? The challenge is not all wireless networks are built the same, and certainly not all fiber, right? We've seen lots of times where we have a fiber outage due to a bad, poor configuration, right? And it didn't fail over properly, and it took out an entire network. I mean, these things still happen, so it's really about the reliability and being able to serve the consumption needs. So Chris, to your point, we have had lots of failed programs in the essence that, Connect America Fund, we went out the day we started deploying it, 10.1 was obsolete, but it was what we had to deal with, but it was obsolete. The wireless technology we're using today is, light years ahead of the capacity needs of most of those applications. It's just a matter of rate, reach, how it's configured, reliability, resiliency. Those are all the things we should be talking a lot more about. Because to your point, we could serve a lot more quicker if we want to balance the approach.
Jeff, I've got a couple of points on this. 2 years ago, there was a speaker on this very stage who said, we need to bring gigabit symmetrical to every home because we have to prepare for the metaverse. Now, if you have a single mother at home in rural America who has to choose between ramen and internet connectivity for $29.99 a month, I highly doubt she's buying a VR headset and wants to meet Zuckerberg in a poker game. So I truly don't believe we need gigabit symmetrical in order to connect everybody. An example of that is Wave, one of our buildings in Aurora, Illinois. We have 100 megabit fiber symmetrical for Teams only. It's dedicated to Teams. It's redundant with backhaul or Tirana multi-point to the nearest tower. And we have 200 megabit on that. And on any given Tuesday, when we have required Tuesdays for everybody in the office, 40 to 50 people in the office running Teams, sending PowerPoints back and forth to each other, we're making that thing sweat at 45 megabits, peak, when everybody's working all at once. So to say we need to bring gigabit to a home in order to allow it to be served is just bullshit.
So, yeah.
Sorry about the reflection on my dome as well, people. I mean, it's hot up here.
It can't be as bad as these lights here. So I suppose that begs another question. Would you agree, or do you think it's bullshit that ISPs are selling 2, 5, 8, and 10 symmetrical gigabit packages?
It's marketing. I'm a marketing guy.
Exactly. In marketing, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we constantly build, bigger engines for cars. Do they need them? But we're Americans. We want bigger, better, faster, right? But not everyone needs it. But if you choose to go buy it, that's cool. If you're separating your network over the cable guys, that's okay, isn't it? Well, I guess let me ask the question, is that okay from a marketing perspective? If you want to market gigabit?
Well, I guess if 5G is okay, then I guess you could do that.
Well, what about 10G?
Is it honest marketing? Like, is that service really there, or are they just slopping the?
Well, that's a different angle.
So now I'm gonna ask a question, and I'll pick two people to give an answer, and I'd like the audience and the panel to vote when they give their answers. So we were talking about networks. So it seems to me that we see future-proof on everything these days. What does it actually mean in practice? And do you think anyone's abusing that term? So who would like to go first? I will pick you, Brian.
All right. So future-proof. I mean, a lot of you know that I spent many years at a technology company prior to Bonfire. And in Bonfire's world, we develop networks for our clients, do consulting, engineering, construction, and operations management. And when we think about future-proof, to be honest with you, we'd never really internally think about it, because what does that really mean? There's so many components. My old company, we talked about future-proof and how upgrades would be so easy, and in fact, it was nothing like that. They were complete forklift upgrades, and they weren't future-proof, but maybe what was future-proof, that you had a good organization to lean on as you needed new enhancements, needed to open up the network. I mean, in my mind, it's really thinking about your partner, that's helping you with that in the whole ecosystem. But future-proof, in my opinion, is a great marketing term, but is what I would call a bullshit scenario.
Audience?
Bullshit. I think it's industry jargon, and that belongs in data center environments. It belongs in enterprises or hotels or schools. It does not belong in residential environments.
So
At one time, the Titanic was future-proof.
So here's another question related to BEAD. So then what does scalability mean? It hasn't been defined, but I'm curious what the panel thinks of this.
Well, I'll take a stab at it. I think one of the fundamental questions is, what are the future uses of broadband going to be? And how clearly can we see those and kind of scope those and know that they're coming? So at one point in time, streaming was the big challenge, and we know that it fits today within the 100/20 standard, certainly. We're hearing a lot of talk now about AI, and there are questions about what the implications of that would be. Those are very fair questions to ask. But we can't just reach for, we can only have one technology because it's the only one that's going to get us there, and we won't ever have to invest in it again. I think we have to look instead at the scalability question from how are people actually going to be using that, because that's going to drive investments that people are actually making, not that taxpayers are making through subsidy programs, but that real live people who have capital at risk are making to be able to improve their services they provide to their markets.
But scalability can be at every single portion of the network. It can be, at layer 0. Do you have a second conduit to utilize for any kind of situation that comes up? Do you have additional fibers? Do you have the ability to provision additional wavelengths? It just goes on and on and on and on. And all of it matters. So it's more about, creating the right organization around the technology that's looking at every portion of the scalability and being able to turn the knobs appropriately as it's needed, right? But layer 0 has to be done very well, right? We like to use air-blown fiber a lot of times, so what if we need to pull that fiber out, we need to repair it, we can blow another fiber in, or, oh wow, we need more capacity, let's blow a larger fiber in. So we like to think about, in my mind, not necessarily scalability, but flexibility. So I guess, how are we doing on that? Agree with that statement, guys? Or is that bullshit?
Hollister for the win.
Yeah, you're disagreeing with yourself.
Well, I was looking at myself. I said, I agree. No.
So, Angela,
Yes, Jeff.
do you feel that digital equity is it gets treated like it's a nice to have or a side quest on projects, you feel like that we're treating it that way rather than actually trying to solve a problem with it?
Yeah, we're definitely treating it as a side quest. There was a great digital equity session yesterday, and 4 people were in the room. So it's definitely a side quest. I think there's a couple of examples, and Zach mentioned some of folks like the VistaBeam folks who are merging in how to make sure that folks understand how to use the technology, that are making sure that it's affordable. And if we're not addressing those, we're going to build. This should have been one of our bullshit. We could add this. If we build it, they will come. If we build it, they will come. Bullshit. Sorry, Jeff. I just took your job. I'm sorry.
No, but so just a real quick question on the
Yeah.
on the thing you mentioned about your session yesterday. That's not the first time that's happened at other conferences. Why do you think that continues to happen? Why do you think there's not enough industry community interest in this topic?
Yeah, I would love to figure that out. So at our conference, at NDIA's conference this past year, it was less than it had been because of all the reasons y'all know. But we still had 800 people who wanted to talk about how to teach people digital skills, how to help them get internet in whatever their situation is and what they can afford. And so I think it's this challenge of merging industry with those who are helping their communities get the skills and understand how to use it and be safe. That being safe part is super important, Zach mentioned earlier. Like the scams that are out there are super scary, and they're just getting better and better about being able to take advantage of folks. So if we could figure out how to do some more merging of that would be really awesome.
Jeff, I think capitalism's at play a little bit here. So you look in Ohio at service provider Digital C, they're doing some very eloquent things. They've connected 5,000 Ohioans,
IO!
And they're also eloquently using a 501c3 status to offer connectivity for $19.99. And so if you're using grant money or BEAD money to deliver packages that are $120 a month, $150 a month, $200 a month, in order to recover your costs and be a for-profit organization, capitalism certainly plays into that discussion of can I make a profit in this community?
Right, great.
And hats off to Digital C. I don't know if you're in the room, but man, you guys are doing some amazing stuff.
Yep.
I agree with myself. Yeah.
As you would. Who do you think is going to, so this is a question, anyone can take it, but who do you think will still be left behind when we're done with BEAD? And why?
From what angle?
Are we talking
They're
infrastructure?
going to be they're not going to be served.
Well, I think at the end of the day, what we're hoping for is that we will be able to serve everyone. As long as we're looking at the technologies appropriately, I personally believe there's a great application for LEO. Do I believe LEO should be deployed heavily in densely populated areas? Absolutely not. The evidence is out there. They're not doing that well in those types of situations. But there's a lot of people that moved out to those places in this beautiful country for a reason, to get away from other folks like us. So if they want to live where they want to live and they can still get access, do we have a problem with that?
Let them eat their spam in the bomb shelter.
Exactly. It's totally fine, right? But if we think about using that words appropriately, we obviously hybrid format, with wireless, fixed wireless, next generation wireless, and fiber, and some LEO, it will work out. I think everyone can get possibly served, but there are a bunch of locations still that even LEO can't work with. Right here in the high country of Colorado, there's places that it won't work because of canyons. And then the costs for those areas are even obviously more expensive for fiber. So there will be some folks that never get connected.
Christopher?
Well, just as a response, what I really worry about is, folks, if we're connecting folks with LEO, first of all, why would we expect someone to have to move to a city to have better broadband, right? We know that high-speed, high-quality, affordable broadband in rural communities can be a massive economic driver. We know that there are folks leaving urban areas wanting to be able to work remotely, and these require, high quality, affordable broadband networks. So why is it, what I worry about is we say, well, you're really difficult, so we'll give you some LEO, and y'all over here can get, high quality fixed wireless and fiber, right? And then everyone's considered served, right? So then it doesn't matter. Now you're just stuck with LEO at $120 a month. That's not fair. So I think one of the things that we need to remember, and I want to echo what Gigi Stone said this morning, is that fundamentally what all of this is about is people, right? So we need to go to these communities and they know what they don't have. Having spent a lot of time in our rural and remote communities across this country, constantly I'm being told that they know what they're missing. So let's go to them. Let's have community-based solutions to these problems. Maybe they don't want LEO. Why are we forcing it upon them, right? So let's empower our communities to make the right decisions for themselves about their digital futures.
What I like what you just said is that I think it gets us away from the model where we've been trying to colonize the digital divide. We have been saying, we know what's best for you. We're going to bring the technology because we want you to have the exact same thing that you can get in urban areas because, again, we know what's best. In reality, the hyper-local providers who've been there all the time, meeting the needs of their communities, have been largely disenfranchised through the BEAD process.
Yeah.
They were disqualified because of the technologies that they were using. And so for the first 3 years of the BEAD program, it was all about fiber deployment and very little inclusion of any other technology. From someone who has to use and wants to use the right tool for the box or tool for the job all the time, I think it's important that we keep that in mind, that if we're going to connect, we can't go and force solutions on communities because we think we know what's best for them.
Preach, brother! It's agree or bullshit, not that.
We actually have a Preach Brother sign back here.
One made up.
You stand corrected.
So one of the other things that I think is interesting to look at is for 3.5 years, we've mostly talked about BEAD, and we've talked about that as a last mile project, a funded project. But I still think, as I'd like you to answer this question, do you think that it was wise for the federal government not to include more funding for middle mile, which we clearly have a shortage of? So,
Are we agreeing or disagreeing?
Agree or disagree? Agree or bullshit? And then would anyone like to take that one?
Well, it's a huge problem, right? I mean, there's what, 14 states that don't even have an IXC. I mean, an IXC, for some of you that might not know, is where all the peering happens between every single carrier. And to have states with not even an exchange point, and that has to, all that information from that particular state has to travel to another state, and in some cases before it routes itself right back to the state, is very inefficient. So that's a huge problem all by itself. And of course, there's some cool things happening out there with Connected Nation in Kansas getting their first pop. But that's only the beginning. If we really think about AI and if we're going to win that race, we need a lot more middle mile. We need a lot more data centers, and we need those data centers to be distributed, right? Why would we set up these beautiful targets, right, that can just easily be taken out? However, in a serious, obviously, situation, if you distribute those, we'll not only create better services, but we'll also distribute some of the challenges around power and security. And all that is based on the middle mile, though, and we're still lacking so much of it.
And this is not to put a spoil on that, but I'm familiar with middle mile programs that are government run that have used those programs to basically price fix at a high level in order to generate revenue for the local government. They claim to be open access. Whenever there's a problem, it's not the core competency of the governmental entity to handle. And so when we talk about middle mile, there's been a lot of discussion about including government kind of in the mix. And I have a healthy skepticism of that based on what I've actually seen. And that's not being anti-government, it's just look at the core competency of the team or the group or the company that is actually running the network. And if it's not in their core competency, they have no business running that at all, in my opinion.
So yesterday you hopefully caught my interview with Brooke, and one of the questions I asked her about was non-deployment funds. And as a lot of people in here know, a lot of the states have been, planning around how they were going to use non-deployment funds in their state, and the infrastructure that we're talking about here is a good use case for non-deployment funds should you have any left over. So how do we feel about non-deployment funds? Do we think that we're actually going to see non-deployment funds be given to the states to utilize, or will the government claw it back? And if they do claw it back, does anyone think that's bullshit?
It's absolute bullshit.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, and generally speaking for the panel, I know you heard what Brooke said yesterday, but I would like your opinion on whether or not you actually think we're going to see non-deployment funds.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
You say no, why?
This is going to be another way that the federal government can say, look how much money we're going to doge this and doge that, and this is an opportunity to look at how much money we're saving. We got people broadband, and now nothing else matters. So we've now clawed back some of this, and look how much taxpayer money we're saving. Despite the fact that the states have already been allocated this money, and many states have already planned for their non-deployment funds, which go exactly to the crucial elements of affordability and literacy and device access and workforce development, training, and education, right? All these absolutely crucial things, because otherwise it's just glass in the ground or ether in the ether. But I am not particularly optimistic we're going to see non-deployment funds.
The law was clear that non-deployment funds could be spent while deployment funds were being spent. That's not being followed by NTIA. Right, so they're already not following that. They're saying no non-deployment funds can be spent right now. So that those of us who really think the non-deployment funds do need to be spent, because it's in the law, and include some of those digital skills trainings and devices into those programs, are super worried, because it should already be spent now. Right? I live in Columbus, Ohio. Ohio had a fabulous program for preparing our workforce for all this deployment. Gone, it's done. So if Peter's able to bring that back, he has to rehire people. We have to retrain people in order to provide that kind of a program. If they do end up allowing it, it will have been a huge waste to have stopped it the way they did.
When you mention Ohio, you have to say OH.
OH.
I'm never getting invited to another panel.
No, well, not especially when you find out I'm from Michigan originally, so that's this cast is hard. So do we think, based on everything we've heard over the last 2 days, that this BEAD program, when we look back on it, will we look back on it fondly, or will we look back on it like we do all the other programs that have come before it for the most part?
I think it's going to be very difficult to look back on it fondly, just because of the how it rolled out initially, then got clawed back, and we have so many service provider customers that have the lashings of BEAD on their back of having to rework and repurpose and spend more money and reallocate talent off projects to just go, go, go. It's going to be difficult to look back on it fondly. In a more optimistic answer, we will look back on it fondly because we have achieved it through fiber, fixed wireless, and LEO. Yes, there are going to be those unconnected still, but we will get the job done. That will be the aspect that we will look back on it fondly.
And for all the problems with the BDC program itself, we for the first time we're approaching having a national database of broadband serviceable locations. And why that's important is that the fabric of subsidy programs that preceded BEAD were problematic because you'd have federal government programs on top of other federal government programs because nobody could agree on the mapping. And now we finally have something that's beginning to come into focus that's going to, I think, drive a lot of the future considerations, whether it's connectivity or it's digital equity and inclusion or anything else that comes along at the end of the day. We've got a better picture of where we stand.
We also have all those digital equity plans that all the states have. Like, we should really celebrate that. Every state and territory has a digital equity plan. That's not something we ever had before. Yeah, I'm like super frustrated with losing the Digital Equity Act, but one of the things we should be really excited about is that we have these plans. We do know, as David just said, we know things that we did not know before.
I think it's also exciting that every state has been involved in this process.
Yes.
Like in the past it hasn't. And while that's taken a lot longer to get the program rolled out, I believe there will be a better end result because of that. The state knows a lot more of what's happening in their state and what their own needs are versus the federal government. So I think that's going to be a successful piece of it.
Agree? Agree? You guys are falling asleep. That's not good.
We need another good bullshit.
What?
Get everyone fired up.
What sort of lies, if we were lucky enough to fast forward into the future, what sort of lies will we tell ourselves 5 years from now?
I don't know, I already have
Industry lies,
PTSD, so.
not life lies, industry lies.
That we figured out AI, how's that?
That'll come just before we say we figured out 5G.
6G or 7G.
10G.
Okay.
10G. I know somebody who has trademarked 9G. He doesn't have any plans for it. He just knows that he has it, so he's ready when it comes.
Anyone else?
We need a bullshit question.
Yeah.
I'll get one, don't worry.
Okay.
I don't know, Jeff, we're Americans, we're really creative. We come up with some crazy shit, so there's no telling what we'll be telling ourselves in 5 years.
So I'd like to think in 5 years that we are sitting here mostly talking about other technologies and their impact to the networks that we're busy building today, that we're upgrading today, and we're not actually talking about this topic anymore. But I have a feeling, and I'll give you 2 reasons for this, that we are still going to be talking about this. One, I asked Brooke yesterday about all the defaults in RDOF, what happens with those census blocks and those people. Are they going to be included? First, I'd be curious for the panel if you think that, in fact, the government will go back and do what's right and figure out a way to include those census blocks, or they will not, because this is just going to keep being a revolving door of we're going to still be needing help, and we're still going to be talking about this 5 years from now. Go ahead.
I mean, I don't think, I mean, right now, like the FCC is starting the 706 proceeding, and we know that all they want to do is say there's a connected America, right? So they are going to do everything possible to paint a completely covered picture of that map and say, look, we did it, job done, wipe our hands. So, following that logic, they're not going to bring back the RDOF defaulted areas, because right now we can say those are served or at least committed to. And just on another point, I was thinking about, back to the question of like who's not being connected. We have yet to talk about indigenous peoples and tribal land, and continually being underserved and getting the short end of the stick. I mean, the FCC is just withdrew the tribal window again for the next spectrum auction, and so we need to make sure that when we're talking about these questions, there's a huge group of people who are not involved in this conversation right now.
Yeah, I think the other group that we haven't, that's definitely. Okay. The other group we haven't talked about are the urban areas that still have DSL, the low-income neighborhoods, that in 5 years, is that when we will finally be like, gee, maybe we should help them get off DSL?
All right, so here comes your bullshit question. Okay. Is it okay to use taxpayer funds to overbuild privately funded networks?
No.
That's not an option, David.
What?
You gotta make it a factual. It's okay.
Yeah, I said it's okay. Did I not say that? If I didn't, I apologize. It's okay to use taxpayer funds to overbuild privately funded networks.
Bullshit.
Right, I think this is one of those, it's complicated kind of answers. What if the current existing service, so here's a good example. The FinDev conference that's in the other tower, my husband works in that industry. And so I met his boss, that was kind of weird. And his boss lives in an area where he really, really hates the provider. Super rural, hates the provider, and would love to see another provider come into that area because the customer service is shit, he said. So in those situations, should we not have some competition?
I think that's the exception to the rule. I think that if you make a decision that taxpayer funds can be used to tilt the scale, especially if it's pursuing a technology bias, then what you're going to do is permanently discourage private investment in areas that are already hard to invest in. And so one of the things that, for me, it will always be problematic about the way BEAD was designed is that it was designed to declare vast quantities of service providers ineligible in pursuit of a future-proof technology bias that now only recently has been set aside and restored to the congressional intent at a time that is far too late for many of those providers that have built networks in those communities to be able to respond. So there is a huge market disruption that occurs. I know that everyone in this room, we're all saints, and we would never think about doing anything like that. But using government money that comes from the American taxpayer to go and eviscerate a competitor that was disqualified for bullshit reasons has no place in America, in my opinion.
Not voting. Abstain.
Do we think that take rate, using a take rate percentage, is still a valid way of measuring whether or not to build a network?
As a predictor?
Yeah, as a predictor of success. So have we leaned too heavily on that, or do you think that is something that will go away? Because for a long time we used take rate, it was always like 32%. When building feasibility studies, do you think that's still a predictor of success in terms of using it in a feasibility study before you build a network?
It's clearly in the business planning process. It's one of the only metrics that, well, it's not the only, but it's one of the major metrics that would be used. So I think it's going to be around for a while, but I think assumptions of take rate might need to change, because there have been assumptions that one technology is favored over another, and so the take rate's going to be a lot easier to maximize. And what people are finding is that that's not necessarily true at all. Competition is competition, and so it comes down to how well is the network run, how well are their customers serviced, and in the case of the example that you gave, a company like that, through normal competition, would be kicked to the curb, or they'd have to improve in private competition. So take rate, I think, is going to be with us, but I don't know if it should be relied on as a guarantee.
I mean, that's assuming there is competition to begin with.
Yeah.
It's a key component. I mean, for a long time we've focused on number of passings, right? We kind of talked about that earlier. And the take rate is a key component. It drives all the economic, viability of the case. Whether you need to go out there and do pre-sign-ups and those kinds of things, that's arguable in my opinion. But at the end of the day, each carrier before they go out needs to understand that they need to have a certain percentage, of these customers to make the minimum case work. But what I would think about is flipping it around and thinking about what can we do to drive more user participation, right? More education, get more users on there. We do a really bad job, generally speaking, of MDUs, right? Those are always like an afterthought. Oh, let's just go buy them really quick and we'll come back and do them later. I mean, MDUs is probably 28% of the country, I think, that last time we got real data. And we don't really see them always doing a really good job on MDUs, and it's a great opportunity. And there are some people crushing it in MDUs, so it's on a blanket statement, but I mean, we need to get people connected. And sometimes when we think about that incremental connection could be a lot cheaper to actually drive more penetration, because in many cases on that MDU, we've already built the network. So even if we just got, people on for some kind of creative rate and they were only billing, $10 a month, right? It would be $10 of profit in a lot of cases. So like, I would just, think about it and what can we do to be more creative? What can we do to train more people to actually utilize this? And for me and having aging parents right now, it's a super scary time because I get really worried about them because they still want their independence, their cell phones, they like to still answer every call, You're not supposed to do that ever, of course, we know that. So I get really worried about that, but that incremental gain could be huge across all these networks if we focused more on trying to get more people actually on it versus stealing someone else's customer. There's a lot more people to get on these networks.
And I think the question is then, can we get there without a broadband benefit? Like, can you all get the price point low enough for a low-income family without the government's assistance and a subsidy that they can rely upon every year?
We need more of it, but we have members in our association that are doing that right now. And they're doing it either voluntarily or because they see the fabric of regulation that is occurring in their state.
Can we have all
and
your
they're
members do
responding it.
that? Like, is that possible?
Well, we can certainly aim
Like
for it.
financially, can they financially manage that?
Well, the first order of business is to make it part of the core competence, that they see it as a business opportunity that they want to be able to pursue. And that can come carrot or stick, right?
Right.
Preferably carrot.
Yes, of course.
Okay, but it is happening. It's not happening fast enough. But I think that if, for example, broadband subsidies were used more as incentives for the service providers that are there, I mean, within some reason, I know there's some bad providers all across the landscape, so I'm not claiming everybody is great. But I'm just saying that incentives for companies that are already hyperlocal, they know their communities, they're in the communities, they're banking there, they're doing everything that they need to do, and they've put a lot of capital in the ground to make sure that they're doing it. That kind of incentive to help them reach further with the money that is now assisting them through subsidy would go a lot further than having market disruption, having all the speculation happen, and then having many operators kicked to the curb because, well, we wanted a future-proof technology.
Yeah, the city I live in actually does this. It's a municipal-owned utility, fiber network. I pay $69 a month for a symmetrical gig that I don't need. But it looks good. And they take a percentage, keep in mind they paid for this network through bonds. They take a percentage of what they get paid each month for from people like myself, and they put it into a pot, and this is how they pay. This is how they pay for low income or subsidized broadband. So if they can do it, I just think there are unique ways of doing it if you really put your mind to it. All right, so one last question, and then we have to wrap up. What's one widely accepted narrative in broadband you believe is not just wrong, but actively harmful? What is that, and why do you believe that? So I'm going to start with Christopher first.
I'm going to go back to how we struck full circle back to the beginning of this conversation, that we are going to solve the digital divide in the next 5 years. That is doing actual harm, right? That is setting up huge expectations, but it also completely misunderstands what the digital divide actually is and actually is about. And so I worry that belief has created sunset clauses in a lot of state broadband offices, right? We're going to need our state broadband offices more than through 2030, right? They're the ones who we want to be able to help shepherd through next rounds of devices and education and support and skills, and continually claiming for politics or whatever reason that this is a solvable solution by money alone does a disservice to those who have always been disenfranchised, both digitally and politically and economically. And so we need to stop saying that we're going to solve the digital divide. And that doesn't mean we need to stop trying. We just need to stop saying it.
I agree with Chris. That's the second we say we've brought it to the point of presence. I don't care what speed you're bringing to the point of presence. You're washing your hands and saying we've done our jobs. That doesn't necessarily mean that homeowner has a Surface tablet or any type of device to even connect.
Yeah.
And then digital literacy is just a huge, huge problem.
Or that they can afford that connection.
Absolutely.
My answer to your question would be fairness demands that everybody have the same thing. I think that that is enormously harmful. Here's one for Stephen Coran, if he's in the room, he'll recognize it. John Wesley Powell was the second head of the U.S. Geological Survey right after the Civil War, and he was tasked with exploring the American West to determine how it could best be developed. And he came back to Congress and he said, the West is scarce of water, or has water scarcity. You cannot take township mentality from Pennsylvania or Delaware and apply it to Colorado or the regions that we now call the West. Congress didn't listen. And so we've been dealing with 150 years of bullshit in the way that the federal government has managed development across the West. We're doing the same thing in broadband. So saying that because of fairness, we have to give everybody the same thing no matter how long it takes or how much money it takes to get there is bullshit.
All I would add to that is, I mean, I think that's huge. I totally agree in a lot of ways. I think, though, going back to the beginning, this is everyone's responsibility. Like we're seeing, in my household, now we're getting multiple generations in the household. I never thought that would be the way it would be at this age right now. And we're having to work through that. And in a lot of ways, there's a lot of great things that are coming from that. But I see the challenge only getting even bigger with AI. I think there's a lot of opportunity for AI and enhancing the training capabilities out there. But I also am fearful that it's only going to actually make even a bigger problem out of this, right? And that's my own personal concern because, when I talk to my AI and show the in-laws and, my parents, it's like, bah! They freak out. I think it's so cool. They freak out. So, I think we have to constantly do this, even internally to our company. Of course, over the years, we spent a lot of time on cybersecurity, training our team, and now it's training them all about AI. And hey, guess what, team? Everyone just got an intern, and they're available 24/7 to you, and they have a PhD in everything. But you have to work with that intern. You have to train that intern. You have to be responsible for that intern's work. So we're training the team, and we're all learning together, but we're responsible for that as a company. And I think we're all together responsible for starting all of this at a lot younger age. I think like Dan was talking about yesterday, this starts at school, ground level. We need to do a hell of a lot better job than just our education world, right? We're the greatest country in the world, and I wouldn't say we have the greatest education. If you're wealthy, you can get the greatest education, right? We can do better, folks. Do you agree?
Well, we're out of time, so please join me in thanking our panel.
I didn't get my 30 seconds.
But you see that timer?
That's bullshit.
I agree.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Sorry, Angela. Hey, before everybody goes, first of all, I just want to say thank you for staying around for this keynote. Thank you for coming to Mountain Connect. If you haven't seen it on the app, next year our dates are August 10th through the 12th. It's been a great conference, and it wouldn't be great without all of your participation. So thank you, and I look forward to seeing you next year. Thank you.